today we're going to explore on how the media reports on stereotypes of specific cultures, and the culture we're focusing on is the Indigenous culture. So we're focusing on the third step of the success criteria, which is analysis of the media reporting. So it's no secret that the media represents the Indigenous peoples in a negative light, because they tend to focus on stories that are about crime, drinking, and violence. A 2015 survey found that out of roughly about 350 articles about Aboriginal health published over a 1 year period, 75% of them were negative, 11 were neutral, and only 15% were positive. What this means is that the large proportion of published articles were representing the Indigenous peoples in a very negative way. 11% just reported on the facts, and 15% were positive, which is quite interesting. Why do you think some parts of the media would focus on pushing a positive perspective? When a group of people continuously deals with a negative portrayal in the media, some aspects of the media might feel the need to balance that out by pushing a positive perspective. Now, the problem here is that only a very small amount of stories were actually positive. The issue with this is, as a viewer or a reader, if you're constantly exposed to negative stories about a certain group of people, you will most likely start developing beliefs and opinions in line with the way the reporting is being done. So in this case, you might develop negative views about the Indigenous peoples. The second point I want to talk about is that the media does not equally report on issues. In 2015, a white male with his car hit an 8-year-old Aboriginal boy on a bike, killing him. The man did not stop, he drove off. As a result, he received an 18-month suspended sentence and a 6 months in home detention. The media did not heavily focus on this event. I certainly couldn't find many examples of where this was reported. And what we need to ask ourselves, if this same event occurred in any of the major cities, if this same event occurred with a boy from a different culture, would the media respond differently? My personal belief is yes. If this was a white boy and this event occurred in Melbourne, I believe it would definitely make its way into the newspapers, and it would definitely be a story that is on the major news bulletins. So this is an example of how the media does not equally report on issues. It suggests that the two cultures or different cultures are valued differently in our society, which again, for many of us, it's not true. However, that's what the media is suggesting by leaving out certain issues. The media can shape people's opinions and perspectives. So the impact of point 1 and point 2 is that young people can grow up with a certain belief about a specific culture. So for example, when AFL player Adam Goodes called out the teenage fan for calling him an ape in 2013, he made it very clear that he did not hold her personally responsible, but the culture that she grew up in. So what happened is, as he was playing a game of football, this young girl called him an ape. She yelled it out to him. So essentially, what she's done here, she's used a metaphor. She has compared him to an ape, and this goes beyond stereotype. It's actually racism, because she's calling a human being an animal. And it's interesting that Adam Goodes did not hold her personally responsible, but he said it's not her fault, it's the culture that she grew up in. What we know is that when a certain group of people believes a specific stereotype, it can eventually become part of a culture. And that means that a very large group of people believes a certain stereotype about another group of people. So in this case, the people that we're talking about is the Indigenous peoples. And there is no doubt that the media has had a huge role to play in what people think or feel towards the Indigenous communities in our country. The media bias that we commonly notice is bias by omission, where they leave one side out of the story. Bias by story selection, where they only report on negative topics surrounding the Indigenous community. And bias by spin, where reporting is done in order to persuade someone to believe or think a certain way about the culture.